All right, good afternoon, guys. Welcome to another episode of Roller Pigeon Evolution here with Sam Smitty. I'm Danny Castillo. Today we're going to be talking about pigeon nutrition and a little bit about medicine, what you should have in your medicine cabinet for some of the pigeon illnesses out there. So here's Smitty.
Once again, welcome back to another episode of Roller Pigeon Evolution. Today, like Danny said, we're going to be talking about your basic medicine cabinet. We're also going to be talking about nutrition, different types of food and nutrition for your birds, why use one opposed to the other. So let's start by looking at a couple things. One, in particular, that I've noticed that a lot of people, or should I say some people, don't use, is this. And what that is grit and oyster shell calcium. What is grit and oyster shell calcium good for? First of all, you have to realize pigeons don't have teeth. So they use the grit to grind up the food that they eat. Inside a pigeon's gut, or should I say inside of his intestines, there's a small butterfly-shaped organ called a gizzard. That gizzard, when you see it in the grocery store or in the meat market, it's opened up. That gizzard is a muscle. The grit or sand goes into that muscle along with their food. The muscle moves pretty much like this, and it grinds up everything that they eat to where they can extract the nutrition from it as it goes through their digestive tract. Without grit, they cannot digest their food. And what happens, they take the food in, and the food passes out, but the majority of the nutrients that they need to build muscle, that they need to build their bodies, pretty much passes out in their droppings. So again, having grit, very, very important. Having oyster shell, it's kind of a dual purpose, because what the oyster shell is high in calcium. Your birds need calcium for their bones. They also need calcium for egg production. So when they lay eggs, every time a hen lays eggs, she loses calcium. In order to replace that calcium, she's got to get an external source of it. That's what the oyster shell provides for them. So calcium and grit together, dual purpose, one for grinding their food up, two for producing eggshells. Okay?
All right, gotta have that grit.
Definitely. It's good for your young birds and for your old birds. Have it in your kit, have it in your breakup. Make sure your birds get it as much as they want, okay?
All right, let's talk about a little bit of food. What kind of food do you feed your pigeons? Starting with your flyers.
Okay, my flyers. Birds that I'm flying, I use a 50-50 wheat and Milo mixture. And the reason you use the wheat and the Milo, some of the birds, when you have a mixture of food, kind of like, and I'll show you what I'm talking about when I say a mixture of food. This is your standard 14% pigeon food. And you notice you have peas, you have corn, you have wheat, you have Milo, all mixed in. And what happens, you have certain birds are like people. They eat what they like. So you have certain birds that like corn, so they eat all the corn. You have certain birds that like wheat, they eat all the wheat. Certain birds that like Milo, they eat all the Milo. Others that like peas, they eat all the peas. But what happens, you get an unequal distribution of nutrition between all the birds. You've ever noticed that some of your birds, they fly longer and some of the birds will land early?
Yeah.
A lot of times what happens, that's because they don't have the same nutrition. The birds that have wheat have a little more protein. Your birds that have corn have a little more carbohydrate. So different types of food affects the birds differently. Making sure that all the birds have the exact same food and the exact same amounts tends to even out and make sure that your performance and your fly times and all that of all your birds tend to be the same. So that's one of the reasons I do it.
So you fly, you strictly feed your pigeons or your flyers.
Yes.
Okay.
That mixture. Okay. Now when my birds are broken up, like in the breakup pen, I feed them the standard mixture. When they're broken up, that's what they eat.
Okay.
Okay? Now when my birds are breeding, it's a little different because I only feed my birds pellets. This is a 22% protein mixture. And you figure, why would I feed them pellets? For a couple of reasons. You take pellets, and as soon as the birds eat this, they drink water, what happens, the pellets breaks down automatically. They don't have to grind it all up. So what it does one thing in that it's easier for them to digest the food. And when they feed babies, keep in mind, when they feed babies, they're actually regurgitating or throwing up that food into the baby's mouth. Keep this in mind. How hard is it to grind that up and regurgitate it into another bird's mouth? Very hard. Opposed to this wet, which just turns to mush. So literally they're just regurgitating mush. So it's a lot easier for the bird. It's easier for their esophagus and for their digestive tract to use pellets than it is to use the regular grain. And I've noticed that people who only use grain, you look at their babies, they're not as fat. They don't have as much meat on them. They're they look kind of malnourished, to tell you the truth. And when you look at youngsters that have been raised on pellets, because of the high protein content, they're a lot better looking. Their feather quality is a lot better. So I use pellets exclusively when I breed.
Okay, overall health, huh? Overall health. So,
Definitely.
And speaking of health, I'd like to see if we can touch a little bit about medicine.
Okay. Now there's a lot of there's a few basic pigeon illnesses that we deal with on a regular basis. So you should have certain things in your cage medicine cabinet just from the beginning. Because eventually you will run into these illnesses, and they're not major illnesses, but if you catch them in the early stages, they can be cured pretty quickly. A couple of things right here that we have. Once a year, you should worm your birds, and this is a wormer. So you want to make sure once a year you worm your birds. And what it takes care of quite a few different types of worms, but annually you should worm your birds. So a wormer. Secondly, canker prevention, Canker Plus, works very well on birds that have canker. What is canker? Canker is a white substance that they get in their mouth, and it's a bacterial infection, also known as trichinosis. Yeah. So that's one. Secondly, Corid. Corid is used for coccidiosis. Coccidiosis, you'll see when the birds start having really, really green loose droppings and they refuse to eat, they start to lose weight. Coccidiosis is something when they get, it affects them pretty quickly.
Is that contagious?
It is contagious, yes. It's highly contagious. One bird will get it and the rest of the birds will get it.
Okay.
And they get it from the droppings. So Corid is really good. It's water soluble, so you can treat all the birds at one time. You don't have to put it in it's not a tablet form, but you just put it in their water and treat all the birds at one time. Secondly, the Ideal pills. Actually, this one, did I open it yet? No, I didn't open it.
Can I see the label?
Right there.
All right.
And most of these can be obtained at your local feed store. If not, you can go to jeds.com and they have all these products that are shipped directly to you.
Ooh, a shout out to Jeds.
Yeah, shout out to Jeds. This is another product, Vitaprene. And Vitaprene is 13 essential minerals. This is something you add to their food. It's just a basic vitamin, but it's something that's really, really good for your birds, and I add it into their food. Lastly, you're going to get eye colds, terramycin ointment, and what that is, you get what they call a one-eye cold, and it looks like the bird's eye continues to water. One eye will be dry, the other eye looks like it's watering continuously. You want to put it in both eyes, and you do it for about 3 to 5 days, and it usually clears up pretty quickly. But tetracycline, very, very good for eye colds.
All right, man. Well,
and that's pretty much it. Just a short video this time. Hope to see you guys again on the next video. Once again, make sure you're subscribing. If you like the videos, tell a friend. And we hope to see you soon on the next edition of Roller Pigeon Evolution. Thank you.
Let's ask some questions, guys, and we'll get them answered to you, too.
Awesome.